all of your
Hey
head.
guys.
Yeah.
Hey. Good man. Good. It was easier to find that out.
Hey, buddy.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Fine.
We got a corner seat if you want to sit on this side.
There?
That
Okay.
side is
All right.
also good.
All right.
Sit over there.
I don't know if Reed was with your mat.
So,
Okay.
she's in bed and stuff, man.
What a light.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's okay. She's earned it. Upstairs on the left.
There were two seats.
Well, they tend to be fun. Well, I don't think so. They have a receipt for the home. So then if they don't want reimbursement, they'll just provide it. Because they may not want reimbursement. So it was locally requested. That's all.
Upstairs. Unless you.
Oh, it's you? I'll sneak up front here.
All right, 7 o'clock. Welcome, everybody, to the July 12th meeting of the Planning Board. Vivian, can you take a roll?
Adam Morosky,
Here.
Peter Pinelli,
Here.
Lou Musella,
Here.
Mike Versand,
Here.
Bob Pfister.
Here. Lou, like to lead us in pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, actually, we're going to go through the applicants a little bit different tonight. I want to do Pawling House first, just because I think it's going to be quick and we can get you guys out of here. You got our letter today?
Yes.
Karen, were you satisfied with the workhouse they got back, right? Dan Stone, and then we're supposed to confer and.
Yes,
is there-
yes, the engineer confirmed that it was
Right.
appropriate and okay.
Okay, so I think the last thing it had to do with the sprinkler system, really, that's what it comes down to with that project. So you got the letter, it does state in there the type of sprinkler system you're gonna need for the place.
Right.
We just need some kind of verbiage from you guys, that you're gonna put that in there, and that's gonna be up to the building department to make sure that, it's being designed properly and it's up to code for that building.
Right.
So, one of his concerns was gonna be possibly the cost of it. So if you come to find out that putting a bridge in is cheaper than the sprinkler system, you might be back to amend the site plan. I don't know, I'm just saying that.
Don't even talk to me about it.
All right. You're not supposed to. No, yeah, I hear you. And it really does come down to cost. So I'm hoping that the sprinkler system's gonna be less expensive. We kinda went and got a quote. And, based on what you sent us, it all makes sense. It's gotta be, up to code for New York State. And we want it to be that way. We want the thing to work if it needs to. So,
Sure.
Yeah, and I guess Joe's out fishing somewhere this week, so, when he gets back, we'll, have him take a look at it, and I'm sure it's not gonna be a problem.
All right, does any of the board have any questions about that project? No, Peter? Anything from you? Lou?
That's right away, fine.
Yeah.
Because I think we're ready to move on, a conditional approval that, that you can satisfy what the engineer said about the type of sprinkler system that you put in. He was specific about the type of sprinkler system that's required.
Yeah, and again, I don't know anything, so,
I had made a couple calls to companies within Dutchess County that specifically handle sprinkler systems, so when it comes to the construction, it'll be one of those companies, like it's gonna be up to code.
Sure,
Good wolf.
sure. Do we have that email that, I don't have it in front of me, from Ed Larkin about that specific sprinkler system that he was referencing?
it's like a-
Yes. It's in the, we'll have a lot of stuff here.
Is this it?
Outlines the whole thing in there.
Here,
This was the last email.
it's the, I think, second paragraph.
Yes, so, Dave, I think the resolution should read, that the requirements of that sprinkler system have to be the NFPA 13.
Well, I would, rather than getting in, we're not experts in that, I think it would be better just to make it a general statement that it's gotta be all code requirements, and in addition, it's gotta be satisfactory to the village building inspector.
Okay,
And I think if you give the building inspector the ability to sign off on it, then, it's not whether, there may be code, engineers can differ on that, but you're moving forward with approval, so it's important to understand that there's still one more sign off that has to be done, and that would be the building inspector.
right.
It's a little different than meeting.
That, that makes
it's not
sense.
specific
Sure,
requirements.
all right.
You would have a resolution to approve the site plan conditionally, subject to approval by the village engineer, the village building inspector, the person the person who was appointed to perform the functions of the building inspector of the sprinkler system.
I can't write that fast. I think,
Well, it's recorded, right?
okay,
But, yeah,
all right.
so it's-
So we just,
Don't ask me to say it again.
They want you to do
Okay.
an P13,
yeah, that's what,
that's what you do, it's very simple.
all right.
National Fire Protection Code.
Can someone want to put forth that,
I'll put forward that motion that Dave just dictated.
can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, you guys are conditionally approved.
Thanks a lot.
All right, have a good night.
Take care.
Number 2, is Kurt here? Kurt, I'd like to bring up Pawling Commons quick.
Okay.
Good, how's it going?
Good. So, I guess this is about the information that came in from Mr. Orr?
It is,
Okay.
it is.
Okay.
I guess you got the email.
Yes,
right?
I
And
did.
I saw your response just now, actually, as far as,
Yeah, it
did
looks
you
like-
brought a sample in last time of the siding, the board and batten? I don't remember.
I bought the hardy board siding in here, and then here. Because I think the information from Mr. Orr is talking about the EIFS material, which is what we're proposing to eliminate or replace, so. Basically, this kind of shows a mixture of kind of where the building's going, dark roof, board and batten siding, horizontal, dark roof.
Right, hardy.
Hardy siding.
And the board and batten would also be hardy?
Correct, yes.
All right. I think that's, you know, what one of his main concerns was, it wasn't listed as far as what the board and batten material was gonna be
Okay.
on list of used materials.
Yeah, it says on the plans that were submitted, hardy blank lap siding in Arctic white, smooth vertical board and batten in Arctic white.
Okay, so it wasn't.
So it is on here, but.
And maybe he was just confused because it only shows
Okay.
the horizontal boards on there.
Okay.
That might have been it. What is your take on what he was talking about with the stucco? The
Well, I think-
EIFS is just a backing of the insulation?
No, EIFS is kind of like the broad term, like Kleenex and tissue. So you got Stowe, Dryvit are brand names for EIFS, exterior insulation finishing system. So it's like a synthetic stucco. So although the comprehensive plan calls for Dryvit, that's a brand name. That's not a material, it's more the brand name that it is, so. But I think he's talking about thinking the building was still gonna be.
Stucco on there,
stucco,
yeah,
which it's
what
not.
you've changed,
Yes,
right.
that's what the whole crux of the thing is.
Sure, I think he's still, the looseness of the composition shingles, he would like, it is fiberglass asphalt shingles, so you brought a
It's
sample
always
of that
put on-
also?
Yeah, it was always put
Right.
on the other building.
Right.
The existing building, so. So composite and asphaltic fiberglass shingle, but composite.
Yeah, other than that, I think really that was it.
Okay.
That was it, we just had to really cross our Ts,
Yeah,
because they had
I-
taken
I
architectural
understood.
review in the past, so we
Yes.
just wanted to make sure.
Understood.
Anybody have any questions about those changes in materials and some of the other changes he was talking about?
What was the action relative to this Pawling Commons? Are we in an amended site plan?
Yeah, it was a proposed modification to the.
Okay, so what did we do relative to seeker for that?
To amend the site plan?
Well, I don't think,
Yeah.
I mean, I think under the regs, I don't think you need to, you can take a look at it, and if you decide there's no impact, you don't have to reopen seeker, so.
So are you content?
I am,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's no seeker documentation that I need to
You
prepare?
don't, seeker is not required under
Okay.
this, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if we really needed to, because they are minor architectural changes, seems like, to the outside. If not, an
Yeah, it's-
improvement.
Well, I should say, it's
Yeah,
not
it's
required.
re-
It's up to the planning board what you do, but, you know, it's.
Yeah, especially with the review we got back from Robert, and he really didn't see much going on there. I think it would have.
Yeah,
triggered us to
he's
come
the
back
expert
in.
on the subject of
Yeah.
community character and community plan relative to the changes that are being made, so.
Yeah, I didn't
If
think.
you're content with, you know, what he's presented here in line with his comments, then I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I am anyway. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. Seems.
Oh, that seems good.
He's good.
It's good.
Okay.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve these changes? Kurt
Make a
seeking?
motion, we approve the changes?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Do we know what, I mean, just want to make clear, what it was the things you presented, just reference the site, it was,
Yes, it was actually this plan that was submitted, exterior elevations A 2.00, dated 5/10/22.
thank you, that's perfect.
All right.
So that's an approval for amended site plan.
Yeah. All right, Kurt,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for clarifying those. All right. I'll go back 5 Oak. Oh, shit.
Don't get comfortable, huh?
Okay. Live Oak Realty. Since we were here last, I think we went through all the outstanding items, and the last thing we had to do was secure variances from the zoning board of appeals, which we were able to do at their June meeting. So I think what we're back here for is to consider site plan approval, special permit approval on the project.
I'll let you start. Just-
I don't have any further comments.
Does anybody else have any
No, I think
questions
we
about
looked
that?
at the project in pretty decent detail. They got all the variants we needed, so I say we give them the green light to go ahead with the project.
Yep. I'm gonna come back to you in a second, though. I just wanted to retouch. Is there any escrow for this that we need to clarify before it leaves us?
No, there's a $1,900 balance. I am expecting one more thing from Labella
All right,
and possibly DPL,
all right. Yeah,
but it should be okay.
all right, so we're ready to vote on approval for this project, I think. A motion to,
Gonna make a motion that we approve the project and take a vote.
A second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and that's,
Aye.
just for clarification, that's the site plan and the special permit for the apartment on the first floor,
Right.
correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
Just making sure.
Right. The other thing I just wanted to touch base, Pawling Commons.
Yes.
Do have a low escrow balance on Pawling Commons, and we did have a couple of bills come in since.
Okay.
So would like to increase escrow by 1,000 for
Okay.
Pawling Commons.
Okay.
I almost wanted to make that conditional. We already put it in, that the approval wasn't gonna be granted until escrow was
We're
paid.
gonna be around for a while, so.
right.
Well, when are you gonna catch up on the other balance that you owe us? It's $1,500 you just said.
No, there's.
No, that's a
$1,900
balance. She has it in
All
there.
right.
She has
might be-
extra.
Yeah.
All right.
Hopefully we're refunding some
5
money.
Oak is fully paid, in full. There's a balance there, that's for sure.
Yeah, you're good, Kurt.
All good? Okay.
Let's go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kurt. Let's go.
All right. Kingdom Hall. How's it going?
Good evening. Good, how are you?
Good. Would you like to take the floor and just give us a little presentation of what you're proposing?
Yeah, so, on behalf of our group here, we have represented here Eric Brown of the Civil Design, Jesse Monda is our design coordinator for our project team, Jerry Spence, the project coordinator for the entire project, as well as we have some local representatives from the congregation who here represent the project. Our team spoke with you approximately a year ago, in April and May of 2021, for an informal discussion to talk about some of the site improvements that we'd like to make for the Kingdom Hall Jehovah's Witnesses there. And the comments of the board at the time were very helpful. And so we took those comments over the past year and have amended and attempt to find a happy balance between some of the expressions that were made by the board at that time, as well as some of the concerns of the local congregation. So we have submitted to you the site plan, which you have, I think, before you, 10 pages, as well as all of the site plan application package. And we did receive from Labella, a lot of the comments back from the application package. So as far as the request for our project is based on primarily about improving access to the site. for increased parking, as well as egress, ingress across the lot. And as you can see, our site plan is designed to coordinate all of that. And so we did have a variety of questions based on the responses from Labella, but we were curious to the format as to how we could address some of those concerns, as well as any concerns that the board might have.
Okay, Aaron, you wanna
Sure,
go here?
I can clarify the format. Usually I go through the comments and we just kind of talk about it. And then the expectation is that you'll submit a response to comments in writing. So, you know, we could talk about it today and maybe it won't be fully clarified, but maybe you guys will go back and come up with some new solution or whatever it is, and you can respond in that way at that point. Does that sound good?
That sounds very good, thank you.
Okay.
And so we have, if they're engineering based, we're gonna probably defer to Eric Brown.
Yep.
And then we'll just let the appropriate member respond if you're okay with that.
Sure. As to the engineering comments, they're from another representative of Labella, so I think predominantly they had to do with kind of like very detailed, you know, disabled parking characteristics and accessibility. So, I mean, I'll let you guys speak to that. I'm not going to have any response, but certainly do make a response to comments to that effect, and our engineer will review it.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, just starting with the zoning analysis, I just asked that you demonstrate compliance with zoning section 9817, showing the front yard setback on Gristmill Lane and Route 22, and I think you all show that on your site plan. So just demarcate it in the bulk table and show, you know, what your proposed is for each road. Demonstrate compliance with zoning section 9822H, which is access near street corners. I don't remember.
Can I ask you on that,
Yeah.
what additional would you like us to show on the CS 101? Currently, we have a hatch mark of the 50-yard setback for the front yard.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also show, well, we're not moving the building, we're expanding it. So how can we further clarify that for you?
I just wanted it in the bulk table.
I believe.
Because in the bulk
yeah.
table, I think you just have one entry, but you should have two entries, right? One for Gristmill, one for Route 22.
So the setback is regarding the building setback, correct?
I
That's
think it
what
was
you're referring to?
the front yard setback.
Yeah, so we have the structural setback of 50 feet. So you want us to provide both numbers for both the Gristmill side and the Route 22, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. I mean, you know, if there,
we gave you the
if
lesser
you
of the
think my
two.
comment doesn't make sense, you can always, you
That's
know,
okay.
write whatever you want in your response. Or if you have additional questions, you can reach out to Viv and
No,
she can reach out to me.
that's very
But you
clear.
understand.
Thank
Okay.
you for clarifying, I
Yes,
appreciate it.
no problem. Demonstrate compliance with zoning section 9822H, and I think that's about access near street corners. The reduced parking stall size requires an area variance from the zoning board of appeals. I just want to make that clarification because you all had called it a waiver on your plan set, and so it's not a waiver, unfortunately, it is a
Okay.
variance. So under the environmental review, I think I saw in several different documents the square footage description of the proposed parking lot varied, so let's just clean that up.
And is that between the EAF form and the site plan documents that you're referring to? or-
Yeah, I think it was different in the site plan application, the EAF form, and on the site plan itself.
Yeah, and so what, some of that confusion might have come from the total area that we were repaving,
Mhm.
which is on the cover sheet, versus our actual new parking lot area, which is
Oh, I
about
see.
5,000 square feet, give or
Okay.
take.
Yeah, so just clarify it
Sure.
in writing and
No
on the
problem.
plan. Okay. So you all had the DEC come out and flag wetlands.
Yes,
I did not know that you could just write the DEC and request them to come and flag
Yeah.
wetlands. That's excellent.
yeah.
So in terms of the encroachment on the regulated adjacent
Mhm.
area, will you be preparing a wetland delineation report for submission to the DEC for that?
Yeah, we're prepared to do whatever they would like us to do to get their approval. I mean,
Mhm.
since they've been out there, we basically just got a surveyor to pick up their flags. and
Yeah.
We've been in constant contact with them to let them know what we're planning.
Yep.
So, yeah, we're gonna comply with whatever they would like us to provide.
Okay, so we would like to be copied on any communication with the DEC and DOT
Yep.
while I'm on the subject.
Yep, yep.
And copied on any of the technical reports that go into those agencies.
Yeah.
And in terms of who you should copy, I think the best person is Vivian. I think it's pbseccy@gmail.com. And then she can forward.
villageofpawling.com.
Sorry, thank you.
Yes.
Villageofpawling.com. And then she can forward it on to me.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll do
Okay.
that.
So the cause of the disturbance, so in your environmental review, it's a responsibility of this board in issuing a discretionary permit to evaluate potential adverse impacts to all sorts of things, including wetlands, right?
Mhm.
So we need to know what's causing the encroachment. So I saw from the site plan, it looks like it's the addition of the septic
Correct.
laterals. So if it's also grading in the adjacent area, whatever it is, we need a written description of what that is.
Okay.
And then the wetland, so there is a stream somewhere back in there, and not obviously in the wetland, but in terms of like connectivity to the stream, has it been determined at all that you may or may not, would you need a permit from the Army Corps? What have you learned?
Yeah, they've not indicated that so far. Basically, this project started, around 94, 95.
Mhm.
That area in the southeast corner of the property is basically our detention basin. It was never there before until the land was developed. We added a detention basin as part of our stormwater requirements. And then over the course of 25, 27 years, the larger wetland, which was offsite, kind of crept toward that. And that's why the adjacent area now extends onto the property. At the time the property was developed, that wasn't the case.
Uh-huh.
So in terms of conductivity, we don't anticipate, a direct flow into that area. But, again, this is just the beginning of the permitting process. So we're gonna make sure that we comply with whatever additional permitting is required for that.
Okay, that sounds good. Unfortunately, stormwater basins, if you don't keep up the vegetation in there and you develop hydrophytic vegetation and you have hydric soils and you have hydrology, then
There
you have
you
a
go.
wetland. So, yeah, it's seen it happen before.
Yeah.
All right, so the next one on this list is what are the potential impacts to the bog turtle by the proposed action? Has a habitat study been undertaken? And again, I'm asking for the correspondence with the DEC Wildlife Office. So there is an occurrence noted for the property based on the DEC Environmental Resource Mapper. And so I would assume as part of your permitting efforts with DEC that you'll be required to speak to potential impacts to bog turtles. So
Yeah.
again, we'll need to be copied on all of that because in order to demonstrate there is no significant adverse impact, we're going to have to rely on the DEC as our habitat expert here to tell us that there's no adverse impact.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've been in contact with them. We'll continue that. There are bog turtle habitats in the vicinity that were identified. So we're going to basically work with, get the habitat survey done, and we'll make sure to CC you on the results of the communications.
Great. Okay. Number 7, I think y'all mentioned the Hudson River PCBs as the remediation site that's within 2,000 feet. But I know when you pull the EAF mapper, it probably said, yes, you're within 2,000 feet, and you're probably trying to figure out what that was. Just so you know, for future reference, if you were to pull the full form, it would actually give you the code number. So I pulled the full form, and I've included the codes here. There are 3 of them. And so that's just what you should note. And I would remove Hudson River PCBs because we're not near the Hudson River, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that research.
Sure,
for us. That was
sure.
helpful.
I'd like to know if any trees are proposed to be removed. And this relates to number 9, which is that we need you to run the information for planning and consultation under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service website, and I've left you the link here. Potentially they might come back with Indiana bat or northern long-eared bat, and that leads to the issue of clearing trees during the time that the bats are not hibernating.
Mhm.
And so I'd like to know if you're clearing trees, and I'd like to know if there's an interest in bats on this site.
Yes, so we are along the north property line.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be clearing some to remove site obstructions at the Gristmill Route 22 intersection, and others along the Gristmill Lane to facilitate the construction of the driveway and parking lot. So there are additional plantings, of course, that are proposed, but there will be some tree removal in that area.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it may be that we will ask that trees be cleared during the best possible time for that species, which is during the winter, generally from October 31st to March 31st, and what we would require is a note on the plan. So I'll be responsive to that effect, probably in my next comment letter.
Okay.
Let's see here. Number 10, has there been any communication with DOT?
Yeah, so not currently. At our initial, in our initial development work, we've basically been focusing on, what's going on the gristmill side. Along the existing driveway, we do propose some driveway repairs. There's some ponding that's going on, which is leading to some deterioration of the pavement, and that's really the main thrust of the work there along the existing driveway on Route 22. We are proposing some striping modifications to that access as well to provide additional safety, and we will keep you CC'd on our communications with them, but it kind of behooved us to make sure we were going to get some initial approvals before we started kind of going down that road, because the work along Route 22 is relatively minor at this point.
So you showed a right in, right out. Is that the current condition, or
No,
that's
it's
the proposed condition?
Proposed condition.
So you would need a highway work permit from DOT?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that we're gonna need to know that with the addition, or the redistribution of the trips to Gristmill Lane and the right in, right out, that it's either improving the traffic flow or at least not making it worse.
Yeah.
And so, some of my ideas of how we resolve that is seeing what's being submitted to DOT for the highway work permit, which generally, I think, always requires a trip generation. Alternately, we may need to see some traffic analysis.
Yeah, we submitted a preliminary assessment in connection with our second meeting with the village. And in that preliminary assessment, we're obviously reducing trips to Route 22. We're increasing safety along Route 22 with the removal of those movements. So we don't expect the DOT to really have too many concerns, because we're reducing the number of trips that are accessing it via their road, via the driveway. But
are you really reducing them? Aren't you just?
Via the main driveway.
Right, but
So-
you're just moving them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so in other words, the trips are being shifted to where we believe is the safest access. Again, that's something that we did discuss pretty well at length, I think, on our last meeting, but we'd be glad to loop you in on our preliminary findings on that.
Okay, yeah, if you don't mind submitting that again, now that we're in a formal application. I mean, I will look through my files and my notes and stuff, but you should submit whatever you have to claim or prove that there are no potential significant adverse impacts.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see. So you have not submitted anything to DOT yet,
No.
is that correct?
Mm-mm.
And what was the approval needed from New York City DEP? I know that you're in the watershed, but I'm just not familiar with what approval you're asking for from them.
Yeah, so the original approval of the subsurface wastewater treatment system was approved by NYC DEP because of being in the east of Hudson watershed. So we reached out to them, immediately when we started looking at the need to make some improvements to that septic system, and they informed us that we could do that with an alt-mod application. So we've got some preliminary communication with them as well, which we can CC you on.
Thank you.
And that's kind of how we ended up at the DEP.
Okay.
Mhm.
But you also need Department of Health, right? Approval?
So we would apply to Dutchess County, but they basically would defer to the approval of the NYC DEP.
Okay. And I guess so the original septic is within 100 feet of the well, is that right? But is it?
Not the well, I believe it was the, oh, actually, let me look at my, yeah, I don't have a scale on me, but the well is there on the CE or the CU sheet,
Mhm.
and, yeah, I don't have a scale on me right now, but,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an engineer, so I'm
Yeah.
obviously not permitting the expansion of the
Yeah.
septic. But I guess I thought it was pretty close, and maybe I read it wrong, but I was intrigued.
Yeah.
Just leave it at that. Okay, so now I'm gonna get to some more general questions. Where are the additional 14 seats going to be located? There was something in what you submitted that talked about 14 additional seats.
yes, so currently we have 176 seats in the building. Those are the auditorium on the first floor. So that's obviously where the worship takes place. That's the sanctuary or the auditorium, however you like to call it. And in that area, there's currently 176. We're proposing 200, so that would be an increase of 24 seats.
Okay.
And all the seats are portioned in the upper level between the auditorium and the two auxiliary rooms that have direct view of the auditorium, directly behind it.
And, I mean, is this to satisfy a deficiency that exists currently?
Yeah, so, there are 3 congregations that currently meet there, and just over the course of 25 years, there's been growth. And so, to basically accommodate that, that's why the expansion in seats was proposed.
Mhm. Okay, so part of the application package, there's some signature blocks. I think we probably need to add a little bit of a sentence to the application to just note what those are. It might not have been clear, but those are the signature blocks that are required on the site plan.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, so I think we just put one on the cover sheet. Is there a particular format that you guys have?
Oh, the cover sheet is fine. I think I saw your version of it.
Do
Maybe.
you like it in the side, like the title block, the vertical title block?
Honestly, it doesn't, it's
Okay.
not that particular. I thought that what you had was not what we had in our plan set, but maybe I just looked quickly and missed that. Either way, just double check it. If I'm
Sure.
out of bounds on it, don't worry about it.
No problem.
14. Okay, so our 25 additional I didn't have the time to do the math.
No,
to
that's fine.
Review out, but are 25 additional parking spaces proposed, or is it 18 because you are losing some with the reconfiguration?
So in the new parking lot at the northeast corner of the property, that's 14, so 7 and 7.
Mhm.
And then in the previous landscaping island in front of the overhang, the carport, there's an additional 5 stalls. So that makes 19 new. And then with the reconfiguration of the remaining area, we end up with a net gain of from 57 to 75. So a net gain of 18.
Okay, so you have 57 today, and you'll have 75 after you're done. Okay.
Yes.
So what has changed in the lower level that is requiring the expanded septic, the new electric, the HVAC, and the improved egress?
Yeah, so in the lower level, there will be 2 rectories. So those would be housing for ministers.
Okay, I don't think that was clearly stated as part of your project description. It sounded more like you guys were just expanding the parking lot. Not sure if that was purposeful or not, but if you could update as you go forward to include that.
The other thing I would I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, if you reference the zoning law, the accessory use, I believe that's what you're seeking to qualify under for the rectory.
Yeah, so I think at the first or second meeting, I don't recall, but it was sort of asked us, there doesn't seem to be anything that fits this particular parameter, so can you do some research, come back to us, and if there's a permit or something like that, let us know. So we had to, basically reach out to our legal counsel to figure out, because I'm not a land use law attorney, to understand what the situation or the understanding of that would be.
Mhm.
And so understanding that at that point, it being part of the house of worship, it didn't require any additional permitting. We didn't mention it specifically in this
You should,
formal
though.
set.
You should though, because it's gotta be, that's a residential use, and you've gotta fit within one of the categories, and I would suggest you take a look at the accessory use, and maybe have your lawyer write a letter as to why. Are you in?
Yeah, I'm counsel for the congregation.
Yeah.
I just wanted to assure the board that this is not a change from the special use for religious purposes. These are full-time ministers who would be residing there, assisting the congregation, assisting with what goes on in the Kingdom Hall. The two rectories would be similar to what would be taking place in another house of worship where one of the pastors or priests happens to reside. So it's not a change. It's just a slight amendment to the special.
It is a change, correct? I mean, you don't have that currently. You don't have that use.
This is a continuation, a slight amendment of the special use for religious purposes, and it is for a religious purpose. These are full-time ministers, as I
Right,
mentioned.
no, I understand that, but it's a category that needs to be checked off. It's, because but for it being an accessory use, I don't think you'd be permitted to do it. And if you look at some of the case law, there is authority for, like you said, a rectory or something like that, to be qualifying as an accessory use, but, I would suggest that we get something from your lawyer specifically about that and give us some background on that so that.
Sure,
as we move
there's
forward.
plenty
Yeah,
of case law that can be
Yeah,
provided.
and explain who these people are, what their role is, what their duties are, and, and then we have a record as to what's been represented and what gets approved, so.
All right, I can give my card to the board if you'd like.
Can I just take a picture of it?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
you'll get it over to us.
Yes.
Okay, so now that we understand that there's potentially an accessory use here that's residential in nature, I think we would need to know what potential increase in water demand and wastewater would incur from that,
Mhm.
so that can be part of the full program. So
Yeah.
that's not in my comment letter, but I would appreciate it if you would respond to that.
Sure, yeah. And that would be applied for through Dutchess County for the water?
Well, I think it's
So
more
it's a
about
well?
so historically, the village has had some issues with water supply. And, we're near, resolving that. But as a matter of standard under seeker, we have to demonstrate that there is ample supply to support, these two residential dwelling units,
Mhm.
although they're accessory. And that the wastewater generation wouldn't overtax the wastewater treatment plant. Now, it's 2 units, so obviously we're not looking at a
The
potential
on-site
issue. but-
wastewater disposal.
Right, septic, good point, yes, the
Mhm.
septic, sorry. So anyway,
Yeah,
we just want to.
we can definitely comment on that. That makes total sense.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Dave, did you find out anything more about the sewer lines on Route 22, if they're?
Yeah, there is none.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not accessible to the sewer.
Okay, so we just wanted to make sure that there
No.
wasn't something you could tie into.
Please let us know.
Okay, so yeah, as you continue forward, and as we formalize the accessory use, just think about how that filters through the various environmental review sections and beyond water, wastewater. There might be something else that you could add to, maybe not, but just keep it in mind. I saw the snow storage was proposed somewhat near to the wetland area. Just curious if it would kind of like drain over time into that wetland. Is it up gradient? Is it slope that direction? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so the current curb configuration at the edge of that slope where the accessible stalls are is currently mountable curb. So, historically, as the snowplow would remove snow from the parking lot, that was one of the areas where it could basically do that. So the only thing that's really changing here is that we've now limited the area. We actually are going to provide a raised curb along the east end of that those stalls at the top of that slope. And so now any snow that does accumulate would be moved just to the side. So it's basically a continuation of what's currently been done there. I just put a note there to make sure that we didn't put any trees there, basically.
Okay.
So they wouldn't be killed.
So it's continuation, but does it drain, would it drain into the, I mean, I guess it's freezing, so how much draining is gonna happen now that I think about it, because it's snow. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, we wanna protect the wetland from salt.
Sure.
So that's something to be mindful about.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
So the other thing we'd be interested in hearing is in terms of your view about the residential use, what number of units do you feel would be permitted? Because that could be, are you gonna limit it to the two and not, that would be good to know, that you're not, this is it, and, because this is a residential zone, and, under your theory, you could have 10, and so.
Well, the congregation is growing. No, sorry, a joke. No, we'll be sure to comment on the number, so that it's very clear what we propose.
To have a sort of a perpetual restriction on that, as long as it's for that use. That would, again, I'm not saying you have to do that, but that would be something that would, make it a little easier to kind of evaluate
Understood.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I mean, I guess along that line of thinking, the response would include something to say that it was for the ministers and not for rental to the general public or rental to to your general constituency, right?
Right.
Okay.
No, absolutely.
It would be good if you could demarcate the area of disturbance on the site plan, so the overall area.
I think on the erosion control plan,
Yeah.
we may have a note. How can we clarify that?
Let me make a note to myself, and I'll take a look again,
Please,
and if
yeah,
I
no
still have
problem.
questions,
Yeah.
I'll follow up. And in your response, you can just refer me to your note.
No problem, no problem at all.
Let's see here. So, it looks like you're proposing new lighting for the sign. So,
Yes.
I don't think you included a spec sheet for that. You had the specs for the other lighting.
Yeah, I didn't make
Very
it onto our
much.
ES 101, I apologize.
It's okay.
So there is some downlighting that's shown on the C501 detail for this sign, but we'll make sure that gets added to the light fixture schedule.
Okay. And then I saw that the Kelvin was above 3,000. We are trying to keep Kelvin around 3,000. Is there, of the fixtures that you listed, is there a 3,000 option?
We can definitely look into that. I just know that obviously with the photometric study that we have, that was done at 4,000. The existing lights are primarily 5,000 K, so we're stepping it down
I
with
saw
what we
that.
proposed.
Yep.
But if you'd like us to look into the 3,000 option, we can see if that will still work with the, the placement of the poles and sort of the number of fixtures that we have, just to
Okay.
make sure we're getting good light levels everywhere.
Yeah, let's do it this way. Let's see if they offer a 3,000
Okay.
first, right? If they don't, then that answers that question, and you can respond in a way as to how you think that this is suitable, based on your photometric or not suitable. And we can go from there.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't see that the site plan application was signed. No, it was signed. It wasn't dated, maybe.
Okay.
Last month.
Our apologies.
Let's say,
We can correct that.
That's all I have for comments.
So we can just get a dated and signed application back into Vivian? Sure, we'll take care of that.
I'll take care of it.
Is there any change to the architectural aspects of, is it gonna be the same kind of design? I'm sorry, it's in the picture, I was looking at the pictures.
I don't know that we've provided any elevation for our intended, this replacement of finishes. We do have replacement of finishes planned for the building,
Okay. We have
but
a-
no intended change of the overall design or
Well,
layout.
but that's what I was talking about, you know, that's something that, you know, the village is looking at that in connection with projects, you know, to get our village architect to take a look at what you're doing and weigh in on how it fits into the character of the community, the master plan and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, I can comment on that just a little bit. So I think we did send in our schematic elevations, exterior elevations. So it's basically hardy board siding. The existing brick veneer along the front elevation will remain. The existing vinyl siding, which is deteriorated, will be replaced with hardy board, fiber cement siding.
And those are the only materials that are being used.
Yeah.
Is that all around the building or just in certain areas?
So the existing facade is primarily brick along the front facade. I think we did send a copy of the architectural elevations. I think it's this sheet here. So this is the siding that's currently vinyl. That'll be replaced with hardy board. It's more durable and it's attractive. And the existing brick facade will remain.
Okay. So you're doing exterior improvements, in other words?
Yes.
Unrelated to the parking, unrelated to the
It just needs a touch up.
extra 20
It's been a lot of
seats or-
years.
Yeah, okay.
The roof line's not changing, or is it?
No.
changes to the roof line.
Yeah, if you could just include that in your project description, you know, exterior improvements, just to make it real obvious.
Sure.
I'm finished.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for these guys while you're here tonight?
And back in back in 1994, they were pretty specific about the number of members of your congregation, and it has grown. And the hours and the days of the services that would be conducted. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Or are there gonna be services every day of the week, or peak times?
Yeah, so there may be activity at the Kingdom Hall at various days throughout the week. Peak times in the evenings are usually around between 7:30 and 9:30, and on the weekend, anywhere from, I guess we could ask our local congregate. Usually on the weekend, your meeting's on Sunday.
We meet on Saturday.
What's Saturday?
At 10 o'clock, so 10, by the time we're done, it's 1 o'clock. That's about 100 plus coming in and out. And then
on Sunday, there are two congregations, one English and one Spanish. Basically the same times in the morning at about 9:30 until 12 or so, and then the Spanish congregation comes in from 1 till about 4.
And so you're gonna have, so that's Saturday and Sunday?
That's Saturday
Understand
and
that
Sunday.
correctly?
Yes, correct.
And
And then-
how about the rest of the week?
Yeah, during the week, the evening peak time is typically, like I mentioned, around 7:30 to 9:30.
So it sounds like there'll be a considerable, a lot more use of the site than there is right now.
We're not proposing additional usages beyond what's there currently. I'm just trying to give you a general idea because, you know, there may be little events that pop up, but typically those are the hours when you know what typically, but it's those congregations that are attending now, and, you know, that's what's proposed after the renovations.
You're going to speak to the DOT, correct?
Yes, sir.
Concerning what exactly?
Whatever's needed for the highway work permit, so if they need trip generation or analysis, we'll do whatever's required.
On the 568 portion of the site?
So the New York State DOT has jurisdiction over the Route 22.
Yes. Anything along the lines of Gristmill Lane?
Sorry, could you
And
clarify your question?
the reason why I bring that up is because on the original application, did you folks seek an entrance from Gristmill Lane? You
In
guys-
1995?
Yes,
Yes, they did.
you did.
I
I thought so, but because based on the verbiage of this particular document from the Department of Transportation, it said, due to the poor site distance looking south from Gristmill Lane, the New York State Department of Transportation will allow an entrance onto Route 22. So evidently, you did seek permission at that point to get a driveway on Gristmill Lane. And based on this, the site distance was poor, so they approved the
Route 22
the driveway on Route 22. What do you think has changed from 1994 to now, other than increased traffic on Route 22?
Yeah, so responsive to the comments from the initial 2 meetings that we had with you folks, we changed that driveway from being an exit driveway to an entrance. So traffic now would only be coming north on Route 22, turning onto Gristmill, and then entering the new proposed driveway. So there wouldn't be any additional traffic leaving the site from Gristmill and merging onto Route 22.
So that is just going to be an entrance to the property?
Correct.
Yeah, because that's not what you said the first time. That we're planning on using Gristmill as an entrance and exit.
Mm-hmm.
And
We've revised.
I know.
Do you have the site plan handy?
Yes.
Can you open it up and just kind of show it to us?
Would you like to see a big one? May I?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I think that would be helpful to see. Because I'm curious to see how you control that to prevent people from leaving on Gristmill. And there must be some geometry that you have in place for that.
So, this is most of the blank space. Make it easier on you. So this is the proposed driveway. This is striped for entrance only, and that's the Gristmill Lane access. The existing driveway here, two-way traffic, currently allowed to exit, turn left or right, heading south or north on Route 22. And the entrance traffic, again, from the south can turn right into the property, or heading from the north heading south could turn left into the property. So what we're proposing is to restrict the left-hand turns for southbound vehicles with the striping here, in order to, and then to divert those left turns here onto Gristmill so they could access the upper parking lot. And then for northbound traffic, those right-hand turns, of course, will still be allowed. And then for exiting, both left and right, north and southbound turns.
Now, why do you think that's safer, your new proposal?
We looked at the vertical curve and the site distances based on the existing topography, so to try to provide the most site distance. As you mentioned, you don't necessarily get great sight lines leaving Gristmill, and so we tried to adjust to allow that just for right-hand turns only. So there's pretty good sight distance for vehicles heading north, so that they don't, rear-end vehicles turning right. One of the, significant, actually the only accident that we're aware of that's happened in the vicinity of this driveway was a southbound left-hand turn, rear-end collision. So by removing that movement, we hope to improve the safety.
When did that particular accident take place? Do you have any idea?
I don't know the year. I'm sorry.
I did foil some information from the DOT that when we discussed that at our last meeting. The past 10 years, and let me see when I did ask them. That's when my request was in April, and I had asked them to provide me with some information about how many accidents took place at the intersection of Route 22 and Gristmill Lane, and Route 22 on 568. That's your address, right?
Yes.
And there were no reported accidents on your driveway, but there were a total of 8 accidents, Gristmill and 22, involving roughly 15 vehicles.
Do you know what direction they were traveling?
No, I don't. I'm not really sure, but what direction they were traveling. No. But my point is, and I'll reiterate, it's a very, very dangerous intersection. And it's a very complicated intersection. Especially now when you have lights on Quaker Hill, where the restaurant is, and you have the light on Pine Drive, and if they're not sequenced properly, you know, you can actually sit there on Gristmill Lane. I've counted a number of seconds, up to 35, 45 seconds just to get out. So it's not, I remember at one of our last meetings, one of your engineers did an analysis, it only took a couple of seconds to get out. I actually think it was 3 seconds. I might be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But the point is, the less traffic you have coming into Gristmill Lane or going out of Gristmill Lane, the better. It reduces the possibility of an accident. I mean, we all know that. So that being said, with the major concern about using Gristmill Lane to enter your property, what happens if that's not allowed to the rest of your project? We asked you the last time to come up with an alternate not using Gristmill Lane. Have you given that any consideration? And why isn't the current situation as safe or safer than Gristmill Lane? In my opinion, I think it is. So why make this change?
Yeah, so that's kind of a multi-pronged question. I think the revisions that we had made to the plan were flipping the access so that it was entrance only. So trying to alleviate any concerns about exiting vehicles, stacking up, you know, blocking residents from being able to leave the communities down there to the east. We have not put forth a site plan without that driveway. We wanted to you know, really hear the planning board's thoughts on that, on the revised design. But we do believe that will improve circulation. You know, obviously if some vehicles can leave simultaneously while other vehicles are entering, that helps with the change out, you know, between congregation meetings. And to touch on the safety aspect, again, removing the need for vehicles to stop in front of the congregation driveway and using an already, you know, existing intersection there at the Gristmill Lane, we felt would potentially help remove some of the potential collisions or incidents there. And by removing that southbound left-hand turn, we hope to improve the safety there. There had been some ice patches down there. We're trying to work on that as well with the pavement repairs. But we felt that there could be potential for additional safety improvements with the additional driveway.
I have a few other questions if you're finished, Luke.
Yes, right now, yeah.
Okay. If you could include your reasoning and rationale for the changes and safety improvements, the answer that you just gave Lou in your response, that would be helpful, because that's something that would contribute to the record. What is the width of the aisle that's between the parking lot and Gristmill Lane?
The driveway there is
21.1 feet.
Yeah, it's about 20 feet. Yeah.
So it's, you know, pretty wide for one-way traffic. And I guess I'm just curious how over time you would prevent, you know, the regression of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, like I could see if you had like curbing and a much narrower aisle, like, and curbing literally preventing an exit, then to me that's like very clear that people cannot exit there. But the way it's designed right now, I feel like, you know, the you know, people are going to do what they're going to do. So
yeah, currently we have a do not enter sign and we have the one-way arrow.
yeah.
We're matching the width of the existing drive aisle there between the opposing parallel parking stalls or perpendicular parking stalls. But to be honest, we're very law-abiding people. We like to follow rules, and it's very uncommon that you're just going to see somebody just see a sign, see an arrow, and just go the opposite way. I know that might be hard to believe, But, you know, around 20 feet is allowable for a one-way drive. We could look at narrowing it, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
You know, to help discourage that, so we can definitely look at the design a little bit to try to narrow the neck a little bit as it goes towards.
I mean, I
Grist
think
Mill.
that would give some more certainty.
Mhm.
The other, can I just?
But look,
Yeah.
just, sorry, one more
Oh,
thought,
please.
just that, like, you know, should y'all decide to move from that location because it becomes too small, you know, then the law-abiding nature of your congregation would be gone, and, you know,
Fair
who
point.
know might move in, right? So that's something to consider for the future.
Understood.
Just having been there 25 years ago, there was a lot of community opposition to the grist mill thing. I mean, I don't remember much from 25 years ago, but I do remember, you know, somebody, a doctor who just said, you know, he would have, it just was of great concern. And I think that's probably why you ended up with what you ended up with. And again, in terms of the process here, I don't know whether it's gonna be the same level. I wouldn't be surprised. So, you might wanna take that into consideration as well.
Yeah, I think we definitely want to be respectful to the community, you know, and do what we can to, you know, make the process, you know, as smooth as possible.
Anybody else, any comments?
Eric?
Oh, I'm sorry.
May I speak with Lou? One of the problems is when you come up from the north, going south, you can't see over the ridge that's right about where the Kingdom Hall entrance is. And so we have to stop basically on 22 to make that left-hand corner. We can't make that left-hand turn with hardly any speed because we can't see the traffic coming over the ridge. But on Grist Mill, we would be able to see that. Just something to think about.
No, I've been thinking about it, and actually, I went on the property, I think, a week or so ago, just to get a visual about the sight distance, you know, making a left out of your driveway.
Thank you.
And there is some encroachment of some shrubbery from, I think it used to be the Dytron building. I don't know if it's the Dytron building anymore. You folks don't own that, do you?
No.
No. And one way to improve that sight line is to ask them to trim that down a little bit, because I used to actually take care of the corner of Grist Mill Lane myself before you folks started taking it. You know, it's impeccable right now. But I used to trim the corner of Grist Mill Lane myself, just to give
And we have
anybody.
asked the permission from them
Yeah, I
to
mean,
do it.
if you
in
would
the
ask them
past.
permission, I'm sure that they
But I
would grant you
mean,
that permission.
what I'm talking about is when you're driving down 22.
Okay, so you're
trying to-
driving south on 22?
South on 22,
Okay.
and you're trying to make a left into the parking lot. As you get up to that ridge, you can't see until you're almost at the parking lot whether traffic's coming or not. And you know how fast people are driving on 22 now. It's like 70 miles an hour.
Sure, but I would think that if you're going south on 22 and you're at your driveway is just about at the peak of 22.
Yeah. it
So
is.
you actually be slowing down to make the left-hand turn.
So we
You're certainly
have
not
to
gonna
slow
come up,
down,
you're
but-
certainly not gonna be traveling south and just, Charlie, make a
But the
left-hand
people
turn without looking
behind
for oncoming
us,
traffic.
yeah, but the people behind us are the ones we worry about.
Yeah, oh, I
Cause we
know.
know we gotta slow down, but it's like,
You can find that problem at any turn, on any driveway on Route 22, or any place actually, the person behind you, so it's always a concern. But it is safer at that point because you're at the crest of the hill, as I said earlier, when you're gonna make your left. And leaving your property is much safer going both north and south. You have a decent sight line, as the general from DOT stipulated back in 1994. Back
And
in
we've
the
maintained
90s.
that, yeah, we've maintained that. with
So
the latest plans.
I would ask you to seriously consider another option, as we did the last time, and I thought, and I was hoping that you were gonna do that, but you didn't. But I would ask you again if there's a possibility. The rest of the project, I have absolutely, no issues with. I mean, you're gonna have two ministers, is that just the two ministers and their families, or just two individuals?
Yeah, they wouldn't have children, you know, so it would be typically a husband and wife. Yeah.
Well, DOT may wanna put a turn lane in, that would solve the problem. Coming south, the left-hand turn lane, widen that intersection a little bit.
I don't have any at this point.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions. I mean, there's a lot of things you're just gonna have to answer from her review and from the engineer's review. And, yeah, I think, yeah, just gonna wait for some responses from you guys.
Yep.
Understood.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate the feedback and all the comments, and we'll.
Yeah, but you still gotta talk to DOT yet, right?
Yeah, and that's, I think, you know, it would always be, of course, conditional to the approval, but I think, if we can give some preliminary information to Ms. Labruto to kind of let her know where things are headed, we would probably wait for the final approval, you know, requesting final approval from the DOT, you know, until we get a little further in this process, just because the time and effort and funds involved, if that makes sense.
I think that's up for consideration at this point. I mean, I'm not sure that, I need to speak with the traffic engineer at Labella, as to where that will all fall out. I mean, it's not under the purview of the village to understand what the potential impact is to Route 22, but certainly we are responsible for the safety of the village.
Yeah, and I would say, having lived in this area and knowing a lot of people who live on Gristmill Lane, it probably would behoove your parishioners if you widen that driveway on 22, got closer to the crest of the hill, so you weren't having to come maybe necessarily to a complete stop if traffic's not coming. So you are at that crest and you can see the traffic coming. To be able to pull your driveway, which it looks like you have room to the south, if you were able to pull it down a little bit in order to allow people to come in, would be much safer than trying to go on the Gristmill. Either way, like.
It's a lot of rock ledge in there. There'll be a lot of blasting.
It's better than losing lives in car accidents, a little bit of rock.
No, we definitely want to, like I said, safety is our primary concern. That's the reason why we had suggested the changes. So, you know, like I said, you folks have given us a lot to think about. So we would definitely want to incorporate that into our next submittal.
Sure. I mean, the history is there with Gristmill Lane. Like, the anxiety of people pulling out of there is real.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, just going back to what he suggested in terms of widening the Route 22. You speak about the bedrock. I mean, the pavement section is, what, 16 feet vertical depth? Is the bedrock right up at the top? I mean, do you have borings?
There's ledge that sticks out of the embankment. That's why it's such a steep slope to the south.
Mm-hmm.
So that, as I understand it, when they built that, they basically had to blast out that entire. I don't even know if the DOT would allow us to move that. That would be a whole other, obviously, channel that we would have to follow. But insofar as just thinking about the logistics of it, that was just my initial thought.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to pursue that, just, you know, conceptually, theoretically, right now, as part of your response letter, you know, to see if it has legs. I think the board would probably appreciate, I mean, Lou's asking you to look at alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
Rob's come up with one.
Sure.
You know, vet it out, see if it makes sense.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Any old business? Do we need to go through any other escrow? Is that it?
Well, so, I mean, we're gonna see them again, so.
Yeah.
Can I just mention on the escrow, I mean, the board passed a new law that requires a specific process in terms of establishing the amount. And it's important, especially with new applications. That's, you know, the ones that were sort of that we're in the middle of, it's a little hard to implement it, but now you need to have, and this seems like a fairly unique project, so it may be a little tough, but, you know, you need to find out what other municipalities would charge for a similar review. You know, and you can take that, and it's supposed to be survey data, so, you know, I think somebody's gotta either find if there's some kind of a database, which there may be, because this is the law of New York State. Every municipality is supposed to follow these guidelines.
When you say survey data,
Like how much, you know, ask, what do you do? What do you do? What does this town, you know, if this was.
that type of survey. I thought you meant an actual, like, land survey.
It's not necessarily an easy thing, because, you know, every application is different. Like this one, the scale is not so big, but you've got this one particular issue that could be very controversial, and it could take a lot of time and effort, and you know, so but again, you gotta go through the process and do your best and have, you know, make a reasoned decision based on the information available to you, and then it makes the, you know, the escrow less likely to be challenged, and there's also an appeal process to the village board. But the most important thing, I mean, and really, I think it needs to be done, you know, it should be done, I think, before the next meeting, so that they're aware of it, and they have an opportunity to weigh in, because you're really not supposed to be processing under this new law until they pay it. That's the other part of it, so.
So is this the law that Jonathan wrote?
No.
This is what you wrote earlier this
I wrote
year?
it. Yeah.
Did
Well, it was written by both of us last year, and then I revised it this year, yeah.
But was it actually, I guess I thought you just wrote it draft. I'm not sure, did it actually, okay.
It's been passed.
Could you send it to the board? Because I don't know that these guys are aware of it.
Yeah.
Are you aware of it?
Yeah.
I've heard something
I
about it,
I mean, I don't think I actually.
So who does this research on?
Well, it's up to, I mean, the planning board chair is the reviewer, so it's really the reviewer's responsibility, so it would be, you know, you don't have to do it yourself.
I mean,
but-
you.
I see. Okay, that's why I asked.
Yeah, we can start some calls to some municipalities, see if they have a set
Well,
way
can
that
I
they
say,
escrow.
I mean, I really think that you should use your I think Karen's firm is probably in a good position to, you know, they've got a statewide scope, they've got, you know, I'm sure they can provide at least some initial, you know, I think Ed Larkin mentioned that he had, you know, possibly some resources, so.
All right.
I don't think you guys should necessarily be just cold calling municipalities. I think it should be done through, you know,
All right.
somebody, yeah.
Sounds like a plan. Do we have any other old escrow issues that we need to bring up?
So do we have to actually give Karen permission to do this right now, Dave? I mean, it's sort of a.
Well, actually, the village board really should, it's gonna be an expenditure, the village, I mean, if you wanna, you know, recommend it to the village board, that would probably be a good idea.
Okay.
You know.
I think we should do that.
Should we make like Lou said, should we make a motion to the village board then to have?
A recommendation. to the village board.
And have.
I'm sorry, can I speak?
Yeah, sure.
I'm not following Dave as to why Labella would be the one.
Well, it doesn't have to be.
doing
I just don't think that it's not like just calling up and saying, well, how much do you charge for a site plan? You gotta know what all the issue, you know, if like a plan like this, you might say, oh, it was a 200 square foot addition, whatever it is. But that's not the whole story. You know, you gotta know what were the environmental issues, you know, is it controversial? You know, I think it's terrible. I don't like the concept, but that's the law. You know, because it's very subjective and it's not going to be necessarily easy to get that kind of data. But if you make a good faith effort to do it through, you know, again, relying on people who have the expertise, that provides a safety net for the board when they make a decision, or for the reviewer, because he's not just, you know, doing his own research, maybe as a layperson, you know, so, yeah. That would be, I think somebody like Karen or Ed or whoever would be able to assess more quickly and maybe more accurately what what the value or what the cost of a particular application.
And you're saying that this would have to be done for each project?
Well, the idea would be to have some metrics, so, what do we consider? Find out what other municipalities consider, because I think they do consider cost, size of building, the nature of the issues, and then you have you come up with some guidelines, but then you have discretion if it's again, this is a perfect example. I mean, on its face, it would seem like a relatively straightforward application, but this particular issue may, with the DOT and everything else, it may create a much more complicated situation, so.
Yeah, we'll come up with some kind of structure. We'll
Yeah,
figure it out.
and again, it's whatever you want to do. I just think, I think it should be in the hands of the planning board can recommend, and the nuances, whether it's a combination of people, so, yeah.
What do you think it would look like in the end? Would it be like a sheet that's got, it's a fee-based sheet?
Yeah, I think there'd be,
probably?
it'd be like, or there'd be sort of like, as I said, metrics where, when you take into consideration, you weigh certain things, like the size of the building might be given a certain weight, and the cost might be given a certain weight. And again, I'm just spitballing here about how you could do it,
Yeah.
So I don't think you can necessarily just make it a fee schedule. You know what I mean? You could have sort of maybe a base fee based on certain things, and then maybe that's based on, the size of the project or the cost of the project, but then you have variables.
Yeah.
That might be the way to do it. So you do have a sort of a base, and then if you see that there's a plus factor for something that's gonna make it more complicated, you would have the discretion to ratchet it up, or if it's not complicated, you could ratchet it down. But I think that's a good thought. I mean, to have some, and again, I think that would be something that, I believe Ed Larkin, when we had spoken about this, had mentioned cost and how many approvals, that's another thing, what kind of complexity, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, it seems a hard one to put
Yeah, I
a
don't-
schedule
I
on, because
mean-
they're always so fluid. It seems like every application.
I mean, I think Ed's basis was relative to building permits. I mean, he's.
No, well, okay, maybe.
Yeah,
I thought
he's
we were
not
talking about
dealing
site
in
plan.
escrow. I mean,
Well,
I don't commonly, in my experience, come across escrow based on any of the parameters that you mentioned just now.
I know, it wasn't my experience either, but that's what the law says, trust me. There's no, they mentioned survey data as being sort of the linchpin of the whole thing, so.
But I think what you're saying here at the end, where we find a base and then we
Yeah.
can determine incremental adjustments that would increase that base, like, certain elements of a project, like coordination with state agencies, for instance.
Right, and you're not stuck with what the statute contemplates adjustments. So as things go along, it's just a guess, it's an estimate.
It's an
initial
estimate. I mean, the
Yeah.
applicant gets the money back if it doesn't get spent.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think the thing is, how does that pertain to replenishment, though? So if the estimate is like, let's say it's an initial estimate of 5,000, and you've added an additional $1,000 for coordination with state agencies because it's a more complex project.
Mhm.
So then how does the replenishment get handled? Is that,
The reviewer has the discretion, based on this thing's getting out of hand, or this thing's going, there's new issues here that we didn't contemplate, and you would, and again, the initial work of coming up with the baseline, like you were saying, if you do that and you have, all right, we looked at these towns or these villages, and this is what they do. They, some use costs, some use whatever, the number of approvals, and we took, and you articulate a rational basis for your decision. We took, and again, ultimately you're gonna end up, I think, with what you said, with corridors that where you can vary it, you can adjust it, and then the applicant has a right to appeal it. If they don't appeal it, then that's it. You know, they haven't exhausted their remedies, so you can move on, you know, so.
So if they appeal it, then no review's happening, the application's not proceeding.
That's right. That's right. So they have to kind of take that.
And who are they appealing it to?
The board, the village board.
The village
Unless
board.
the village board is the, yeah. So, well, actually, no, the way it would work is if it would be the mayor who would be the reviewer, and she would recuse herself if it went to the board of trustees. I believe that's how it works and that would only be for rezoning, you know, that would be, not as frequent, so.
Yeah, I think if you could send it to the whole board, I don't think these guys have seen it.
Yeah.
Or if they have, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And it should go.
Well,
up
the
to both
idea
boards.
was to get it
Good
sort of
point.
the system squared away and, you know, figure out.
Is that what you sent me for Sean? When he had an issue with the paying?
Yeah, is that, I sent you the local law, right? Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah, that's it. So you can, yeah.
Forward it to the board?
Yep.
So
Yep.
forward that to both planning and zoning.
Okay.
Do me a favor, Vivian, would you just shoot it to me first so I can make sure it's the one that we're talking
Yes.
about, apples to apples?
Yeah. I don't know if this is the right, can I talk about this escrow thing?
I don't see why not, just 'cause
Well-
talking about escrow.
When we are done with the project and ready to, and when the issue of refunding escrow comes in, I was told that we wait 6 months. I don't remember who told me, but that's what I remember. So I guess my question is that right, or how?
That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, to me, it would be common sense. I mean,
Wait.
is the project done? Is there any possibility of them coming back and, like, you know,
Well,
people?
It's not so much that, when a project's done and has their approvals, it's waiting for consultants to send their
Oh, right,
billing
of
in.
course, yeah, no,
And so
after, I thought she was saying after
No,
everybody's
so
been
I
paid.
think we
and-
need
yeah.
to set some kind of a timeline as, so that people submit their bills in a timely fashion so that we can close
Sure.
them out.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, but I think it would be, you know, again, if you have a sort of a rule that, you know, everybody's working together to try to confirm that everybody's bills are in, but if you wanna say it's 6 months, you know, you're out of luck. You know, you haven't submitted your bills, and that may be where, whoever told you that may have been where they were
Yeah.
coming from, which is fine, you know, that's, you know.
So for an example, I have 21 West Main Street that was approved a month,
Last
couple
month.
of, yeah. So is that something that's discussed at a meeting here, as far as if there's any more bills coming in from consultants, from you and from Labella? Is that something we would discuss here, or is it a behind, just a behind the scenes kind of thing, like?
Well, yeah, nothing should be behind the scenes, but
Well-
it would be, the reviewer would.
Yeah, I think it's part of the clerical work there, you could reach out to them.
Yeah, I don't think.
Is there any more
I don't
outstanding
think
bills?
So it doesn't have to be discussed here, it's just.
It's not required, but
Yeah.
we have the bullet of escrow on the agenda for exactly this reason.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything wrong with, and I think it would be a great idea I'm glad you bring this up, just run through and say, look, this is what it's almost like when the village is paying bills, we approve these, here's a report on escrows. And you just have a monthly report. And then you don't have to do, and then hopefully a lot of them aren't controversial and, you can look at the whole thing, and if anybody has a comment, then great. If not, you just move on.
So approve it like minutes, kind of?
Yeah, just say, look, we all looked at it, and it's more informational though, it's just so that everybody knows what's going on, and, but I do think it's probably something that doesn't have to be, you don't have to have 7 people talking about, how much we're gonna refund, so.
Yeah, like you could use this time to write a handwritten note to Dave to be like, hey, think about this, did you get your last bill in for X, Y, and Z? And then Dave, did you see my note?
Okay.
and then he can respond, and we don't have to get into the details necessarily,
Okay.
right? Is that what
Yeah, you know, well, I was actually just thinking that if the board, it would be probably good for the board to understand and to get a report. I'm thinking of an Excel spreadsheet with the names of the applicants and, you know, the dates, some basis for, this is what they paid, something very simple, you know, here's what we have left, and then everybody can look at it and, you know,
Okay.
see if anybody has a problem. But you're sort of leaving it to the chair to run the thing, and, you know, he can obviously consult with you guys and everything else, but, yeah.
Yeah, I know there was somewhat of an issue, like you sent a bunch of refund checks out last year, right? Like old applications that there were still
yeah,
escrow sitting in their accounts
Well,
and.
yeah, I've sent out a few, but, some people I can't get a hold of. And they're not, I left a message for, like, for one, Trinity Pawling, I'm not getting calls back from them. I've left detailed messages and emails. I think, I don't remember who the contact person is there. And he's not calling back. So what do I do? Just issue the check and mail it to his attention, or?
I would say yes, I mean, and
With a
usually the
letter.
checks are void after a certain number of days.
Well, are the checks getting returned? You're sending it to the main?
No.
No, I
Well,
think if
I'm
you
not-
send it, yeah, I mean.
I was trying to contact them to let them know they have this refund. I thought, I was told that, for them, that they had to request it in writing, their refund.
I don't,
No.
no.
Yeah, I don't
think
I mean,
that's
you
right.
shouldn't have to request, once the project is done, you should just say, you know, and all the bills, you know, all the bills are paid, or that 6 month or whatever you said has expired. You know, yeah, just give, it's their money, you know, it's just, yeah.
Okay.
I also, like, you know, it might be that the contact you have is someone that's not necessarily still working there or
Right.
still affiliated, like, I know Trinity Pawling came out of our office, you
Mhm.
know, and the two people that worked on it are no longer with Lavella. So like if, for instance, that was one of your contacts, you're not gonna
Yeah.
get a call back.
Yeah, okay. That's an old one, very old one.
Yeah.
Like years.
We can resolve that tomorrow with you.
Okay. And that's it.
Yeah, well, the only reason I mention that, so we don't have a bunch of applications that are 5 or 6 years old and there's just money sitting in their escrow accounts. It would be nice to stay on top of it. As soon as they're done, sure, reach out to all the consultants, find out who still hasn't billed, and, you know, otherwise.
Okay. I'm gonna start doing that then. There are a few that I'll mail out. And then as far as the most recent ones, like O'Connor's, Pawling Free Library is another one.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I would make sure that all the bills are in from the consultants. I can,
Yeah, that hasn't been
you
that
know,
long.
but I don't know that you need to wait any longer than that to issue a refund. And because if there's a new, you know, I mean, like Pawling Commons is a great example, right? We thought we were done with it, but then they came back.
Right.
But you know what, they came back and we would have been like, we need more escrow, right? So you always have that option and opportunity.
Yes. Okay.
Nice. Any other old business? Anything else wants to talk about? Oh, the minutes.
Minutes.
Yeah. Everybody get to look at the minutes?
Yeah?
I'll make a motion to approve the June minutes.
Second? All in favor? Aye. All right. Motion, adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Your seat went
I
down.
got new chairs here. I might take one of those next time. Holy cow. I was gonna sit on the floor.
Oh.
Yeah, these chairs all off. Good night, everyone. Good night, David. See you again.
Good night. See you later.